Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're all very welcome back after yet another soft evening, and I trust everybody enjoyed the barbecue or wherever it was that you spent yesterday evening. We begin today with a topic dealing with the world turned upside down, and it's very obvious looking at the size of the crowd in the auditorium that it's not just the world that's turned upside down. I guess a few other people might also have been turned upside down in terms of their intentions for today overnight, but perhaps they'll keep coming as we go. So we have a very busy day, a very busy program of presentations, so we need to get moving quite quickly. So I'm going to call to the podium Jason Davenport. Jason is from Allied Potato Incorporated in the USA, and he's going to deal with that exact topic of potato marketing, or marketing potatoes in a world that's turned upside down under the preface of no risk, no reward. Jason.
Thank you. All right, welcome to the final day of the World Potato Congress. Hopefully, we can all get out of here. The airports are pretty rough, so we might have to extend the conference, who knows. I know most of us in this room can probably talk about potatoes for hours on end. I know I can. My wife, who sometimes goes out with us to our business dinners, while we're talking about potatoes, I'll look over to check on her, and she's nodding off fast asleep. So my one simple goal during this presentation is to just keep my wife awake. So, again, my name is Jason Davenport. I'm the president of Allied Potato, based in Bakersfield, California. We're a grower of potatoes, mostly round white chipping potatoes. We grow in California, Oregon, Washington, and Colorado. We've set up international farming and processing operations as well. I'm currently serving as the chairman of the board for Potatoes USA, which is our national potato promotion board. I've been involved in that organization for at least the last 6 years in various capacities. So again, today it's a true honor to be here to speak to you all, and I appreciate the invitation extended to me. So today my presentation is on no risk, no reward, marketing potatoes in a world turned upside down. Many of us in this room know the risks of growing crops and growing potatoes around the world. It's not an easy task. I'm a fifth-generation farmer from a small town in Idaho. That farm is no longer in existence. My family came over from Germany and the UK, and just like our neighboring farms and other farms in the area, it's been tough to survive. Some of the issues that we've had to deal with in the past, we've all seen this. As I've traveled around the world, I've been to Inner Mongolia, and I've seen irrigation practices and issues with water infrastructure over there. I've seen torrential downpours in Thailand. I've seen untimely rains and unseasonal downpours and lack of rain in Guatemala and Nicaragua, the Dominican Republic, as well as water infrastructure challenges in Northern Africa. On our farm just this last year in Colorado, one of our fields got hit twice in the same season with hail, once in July and once in August. And then some of our friends in the upper Midwest have faced challenges with rain and heavy torrential waters and flooding over the years. So that's been a challenge as well. Out west in the United States, we're faced with severe drought conditions right now. So where I grow potatoes in California and even in Washington last year, we had temperatures as high as 47 degrees Celsius in Washington that we were growing in. And in California, we got up to 45 degrees Celsius. So that's up to about 118, 115 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's been a real challenge. These are some of the challenges that happens when you're growing potatoes in these temperatures. They like to break dormancy early. You can get sprouting. Some of the markets that we ship our potatoes to do not allow any sprouting, but it's tough to do and to ship to these customers when the potatoes are breaking dormancy and the physiological age has exacerbated. Potatoes that we see here coming out of storage bins, that's not a pretty sight. It doesn't happen to every building, and it's not all of our potatoes, but when labor is tough This is not easy to get your workers to want to work in conditions like that with the smell and with the conditions. So these are some of the challenges that we're all faced with as we see exacerbated weather issues and some of the on-farm challenges that we're faced with around the world. Just this last year, with some of these crop losses and challenges that we've had out west, they had to fly in potatoes to Japan just due to the supply chain and transportation issues. That's been a growing concern, and many of us in this room are probably dealing with that. I know I am a lot as well. What we normally see right now in potatoes or even in growing and production agriculture is sometimes some areas do really well and they have a great season, and other areas really struggle and they have a really rough go. And that's just the nature of farming and the nature of agriculture right now. So we have to be prepared for every scenario. So I feel like this slide pretty much defines my life for the most part. I feel like you have to experience failure and experience making mistakes in order to really greatly appreciate the opportunities that come your way and to appreciate the successes that you are able to achieve in life. In my life, I've had many. I've had quite a few obstacles to overcome, and I think that adds to our story of how we get to this point in our lives here today. So, I want you guys to kind of think about where you came from and how you got to this moment and this point in your life, because we all have some pivotal moment or some path or some trajectory that shaped us, that helped get us to where we are here in this moment. We all want to have opportunities to pass on our research or our farms or all the stuff that we're working on, the innovative technology that we're coming up with to the next generation, and to see production agriculture excel and to do better in the world. We're all part of that story. We're all trying to find ways to overcome the challenges that we're faced with out there. So I just want to tell you a little bit about my story and how I got to this point. It starts with football. American football, yes. I really wanted to play football when I was young, but I did not realize how difficult it was and how much it actually hurt when I was young to be out there on the field. So I had to learn my first lesson of perseverance, of you don't get anywhere very quickly. It takes a lot of consistent effort and a lot of practice and a lot of hard work. So rather than quitting, I stuck with it. I continued to really work hard and I actually got pretty good at American football. As a matter of fact, I had the opportunity as a fifth-generation farmer of immigrants. I had the first opportunity to actually go to college and play football. And that was going to be great. My dad was pretty proud. It was a great moment in my life, except, of course, I made a couple or possible series of mistakes, and I had a few setbacks and a few challenges, and it always starts with that. You have to learn from them in some way. What was my main challenge and my most serious setback? I married a cheerleader. I just wanted to see if she's awake, and she is. So that actually wasn't a setback. We've been married for 26 years, and we have 4 wonderful kids together. But again, coming from a small town in rural Idaho, these are just some of the experiences that you have to overcome in order to see where you're going to go. So I didn't actually go to college right away, but we did eventually make it there. With some time and with some effort and some coaching and possible help from our parents and stuff like that, they actually got us into college where we were able to go, and we went to college with our 3 kids. Both of us went full-time. We had a lot of work cut out for us. I got my degree from the University of Idaho in plant science and ag business. And we finally got out of school, and I was able to get out into the market of getting a job in agriculture, which was my ultimate goal. That's why I went to school, and that's why I wanted to go get involved in this career and actually get to this point in my life. So I just simply wanted a job. My dad actually sold the farm while I was in college, so I had a great experience getting out there in the world and having a wonderful job in agriculture. And eventually, I had the opportunity to start a business at the age of 29 years old at the start of a recession with a very complex, difficult business partner, and to say the least. And after 1 year of working in this business, we formed Allied Potato, and things went well in the first year. We were actually able to overcome a lot of our initial challenges in the business. I was able to acquire the company, and then I was able to add on a new partner, which again, just like a successful marriage, in order to be successful in life, you got to have a good partnership, just like in any industry. And I brought on another partner, and that was really, really helpful for me. So that's part of the key in connecting my industry and having our business be successful and to develop the relationships that we have. My partner now is a little bit like the U.S. version of Jeremy Clarkson. So he doesn't know who that is. He's probably going to Google him right now. But he's been great so far. So what we do, so what we got involved with first off in our business was kind of a niche enterprise. We do a lot of exporting, and we had started doing a lot of exporting of potatoes. That video I showed you earlier was the initial success that we had of potatoes arriving overseas. Generally, they were showing up mostly rotten. So we had to overcome a lot of challenges. We're growing potatoes in temperatures out west that are over 40 degrees Celsius, and we're exporting them and putting them on the water for 30, 40, 50. We've even had our potatoes on the water for 60 days on the water. So in order to do this, we've had to incorporate and challenge ourselves back on the farm to come up with a lot of different practices that have made us successful today. And we finally got to the point where we're shipping potatoes 52 weeks out of the year. So we've gotten to year-round supply on our export program. This is me and my daughter at the port of Long Beach. We did a tour recently for a bunch of congressmen showing them some of the challenges that we were facing on infrastructure in the area. This is extremely important to overcome because, as many of you know here, we can grow all the potatoes we want, but if we can't ship them, that's a serious problem. Our customers, they've only made the job a little bit harder. They want perfect potatoes now to arrive. So they want low sugars, perfect fry color, very low bruise, and zero rot, essentially. And we've been able to mostly deliver that. Now we've been faced with greening challenges, sprouting challenges, and other phytosanitary concerns or FDA concerns that we have to kind of work through as well. But we've got a lot of support, and our industry has been very helpful to kind of get through those things. So in the end, we became pretty successful at shipping potatoes. There were times, even now, where we have 12,000 metric tons of potatoes on the water before a single shipment arrives. So talk about risk. That's a lot of money on the water before you know how they're going to arrive. Right now, we actually ship over 90,000 metric tons of potatoes overseas, just from our farms alone, and that doesn't even include what we ship to Canada and Mexico. So in the end, we're happy to say that that's been a good opportunity for us, and it was our first real niche in our marketing. So now, as we move on, some of our customers, we've had a really good customer out west that we've worked with that's taken our larger, oversized potatoes to make fresh-cut French fries or chips. And so with all the potatoes grown in the U.S. and so many of them being used for processing and for the frozen market, there are a few QSRs in the United States that actually do want fresh-cut French fries. In the U.S., we call them kitchen-cut, fresh-cut, or hand-cut potatoes. So that's really a great addition that they can put on the menu if they can actually just get consistent supply out of their providers. What's the challenge for us? We've been able to ship those potatoes on the West Coast pretty well, but most of the population is east of the Mississippi. So getting our potatoes, which we primarily grow on the West Coast, all the way to the East Coast has actually been somewhat harder and more difficult than even exporting our potatoes. So we've had to come up with a lot of innovative ideas on how we're growing and using our potatoes and handling them to get them to these markets by truck, because we can't ship them by rail. A lot of frozen products can go by rail and arrive fairly successfully. We have to use trucks because we can't have our potatoes on a rail for 2 or 3 weeks, as that's been getting longer as well. So it always comes down in our business to logistics and quality. If you can solve these two main issues, then you can have some reasonable success, especially in the potato market. Logistics. Our goal was pretty simple. We wanted to have year-round supply with no gap at all. And on quality, year-round supply with no bad potatoes. Oversized potatoes are already extremely challenging. They're very susceptible to bruising. They're very susceptible to mechanical damage. And once you put them in a cardboard box after washing them, the shelf life on those potatoes do not last very long. So the handling process is very unique, and it's very proprietary to our business, or we at least think so anyways. But we've been successful in actually getting those potatoes shipped around the country. As a matter of fact, we were getting very successful at it. And we considered this a brand explosion. Our brand, again, being Chipperbeck, is a play on the name of a variety in the U.S. Known as Kennebec. It's in Canada as well. It's kind of no longer really in use, but that was the brand we came up with, was the Chipperbeck brand. And we started marketing our oversized potatoes in that carton and in that brand around the U.S. And it started doing really, really well. We were developing a lot of momentum. Our essential goal and plan was to basically say, America's finest chefs demand Chipperbeck. And we only needed one chef to agree with that statement, and then we were good to go. So ultimately, it was going pretty good. We were having a pretty good brand explosion. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and we started seeing sales start to tank off. As a matter of fact, in 2019, it was our best year for shipping our potatoes around the U.S. for our Chipperbeck brand. Retail sales were up over 2018, as well as food service sales in the country. So for us, being a food service sales company, that was really good for us. 2018 was a good year, but 2019, when they were taking 3 to 6% more product than they were the prior year, it was going really well. 2020, in the beginning, in January and February, was becoming one of the best years we had going into the pandemic, and it was looking really promising and really good. And then all of a sudden, the pandemic hit. Retail sales are down 22%. Food service sales were down 49%. And again, this was the start of a whiplash effect of a logistics nightmare where demand falls off and then picks right back up a little bit later, and that was really challenging, and it still is challenging to overcome. So we had to ask ourselves, what do we do at this point? We had outlets for those potatoes to other markets, fortunately, because the crisping market for us was actually going pretty well. So we diverted the potatoes, but we still had our brand. We had all this work that we'd done over the years to kind of develop this product for us. So we wanted to know, what do we do? How many potatoes do we plant? These are some of the questions that we commonly ask, and many people in this room ask when you're on your farm and you develop new products and new innovative things for your industries. So just how do we recover? Well, we have a really good sales team, really good marketers, and really good guys, and they had time on their hands. So they started getting more creative and working on our branding and a lot of the work we'd done. So some of the work we'd actually gone out and done is we work directly with chefs. We work on blanching techniques. We work on different frying techniques directly with them. So we really focus on the relationship and the interaction with the chefs and with their restaurants. And with coming up with some of those really great innovative concepts and ideas, all we had to do, we felt like, is to get on social media and show them what we were doing out on the farm and some of the ways we were trying to make the potatoes better and improve their quality and improve how we deliver those potatoes to them and interact with them in some way, because we no longer had food shows. We no longer had opportunities to meet in person like this, to go interact with them or even to go to their restaurants very much, because a lot of it was just grab and go type stuff. So we did start working pretty hard on this. It only took a little bit of effort in order to get a little bit more brand awareness and some interaction with some of our customers, which to me was really positive. We started seeing some results. One of our customers in Texas is Hopdoddy. It's a great restaurant chain, and they're using our potatoes, and they had a lot of great things to say about us. So they put us in a supplier spotlight, and we felt like we're getting some traction back. We're starting to see what our brand can do and all the effort that we were putting in, even during a pandemic and when food service wasn't doing fantastic. We were starting to see this start to come back a little bit. So it was really feeling pretty good for us to get a little bit of awareness from Hopdoddy's. And when they say stuff like Chipperbeck potatoes come in, they make it possible to serve you the most mouth-watering fries available. It's great marketing for us. We love it. Some of our customers that we collaborated with and worked with came up with a whole new French fry idea. They decided to come up with a $200 plate of French fries in New York, the most expensive French fries in the world. So this made a Guinness Book of World Records. It's been all over on different stories on CNBC, Fox News, Real Time with Bill Maher. I've even had friends text me news broadcasts from overseas, whether it be in India or in Asia, about this potato. So you've got a potato where someone was sitting around thinking about, how do we come up with a $200 plate of potatoes? Let's fry it in, or let's blanch it in Dom Perignon champagne, triple fry it in goose fat, and then layer it with truffles and edible gold flakes. So I don't know who sits around thinking about that, but it works. They have a 3-month wait to get into their restaurant. So we felt pretty good. Even though it was a collaborative effort, our only involvement in this was just to supply the potatoes. That's all we had to do. But again, a lot of work being done with the chefs and them able to come up with these really cool concepts. This is what Bill Maher had to say, because you know you're going to get mocked sometimes.
Most expensive French fries, made with chipperbeck potatoes blanched in Dom Perignon, triple fried in goose fat, and topped with shaved truffles and edible gold dust. Tell me what's more disappointing, the $200 price tag, or when you go to eat one and a seagull steals it?
So yeah, trust me, if that seagull was stealing my $10 French fry, I'd be after him. So yeah, anyways, that's a really cool thing. We've collaborated with other restaurants on different projects as well, but that's a really cool one that we've been able to get our name out there and get our brand and some messaging and a lot of brand awareness for us, which has been really good. You don't really think of fresh cut French fries as a branded product, or particularly when you're going business to business, but it's working out pretty well for us so far. As a matter of fact, this last April, we were just featured in Food and Beverage magazine in the US, and this is one of our sales guys, Dominic. Again, our marketing team goes out and works with our chefs and spends time with them building that relationship and working on the ideal fry for their restaurant. And a lot of times it's very different from restaurant to restaurant and area to area. From the way they prepare fries in Chicago is way different than the way they prepare fries and work with the restaurants in Atlanta. So it's been really, really great for us to have these branded opportunities to go work with these really important customers of ours and develop these supply partnerships and again, build this critical brand awareness with our really excellent sales team. So again, when it comes to problems in our industry, we've had to face a lot of them. I've grown through these processes and learned from them and had to work with my team and constantly go back on the farm, and we're always working on small incremental change and ways to improve. It's never something that happens quickly. There's never results that just come to you immediately. Just for fun, while we were here in Ireland, we thought, hey, let's go play the Irish lottery, see what happens. Of course, none of us won. There's no get-rich-quick program out there as much as you want to think, but it was fun to just play it while we were here. But again, with incremental change and incremental work and hard work, we're able to take a potato and export it overseas to customers that really wanted those potatoes from very, very difficult growing conditions out west. And that's been a really good opportunity for U.S. potatoes because now those potatoes are not on that domestic market. They're going to customers that need them in other parts of the world, and those other parts of the world really do need those potatoes. So we've had to overcome, again, shipping and logistics challenges, but we have been able to get to that year-round supply for both our export and our fresh cut French fry business. And hopefully we can do this and make a profit and not make too many mistakes along the way, because we do not want, again, the bad potatoes to show up in our customers' restaurants or overseas where you have a lot of potatoes going very quickly. The bigger you become and the more you end up shipping, the more risk you have. So for us, how do we get there? What do we continue to do? How do we take on the next challenges that might come our way? Well, I'm always hopeful that what we've done in the past has teed us up for opportunities in the future to take on more challenges and more difficult business opportunities. But we have to accept and take on these challenges with kind of a core ethos. And mine, what I try to work on with my team and my employees is, first off, to have optimism. No matter how hard and how many times I've gotten challenging situations with the rivals and quality issues and this and that from our overseas customers, you first just have to embrace the fact that, hey, this is going to happen. Let's be optimistic and let's overcome these challenges and continue to move on. It's important to the farm and important to our business. And then having a strategy, a 5 and a 10-year plan for your farm and for your business is extremely important. And your team needs that plan. They need to know where you're planning to go in the next 5 to 10 years. So having those plans is extremely important. And then the discipline to stay constant and to carry out those plans on a daily basis and to teach that to your team and have your team really embrace the culture that you're trying to develop within your farm. And then, of course, the final issue for us is that we have to have execution, the ability to execute on a daily basis. Without execution, without the opportunity to implement both the optimism that we need, the strategies, and the discipline, we have to have, more than anything, the ability to execute. And that's extremely important for us. So this is not the Irish rooster potato. This is what we call in California #success. Again, this is a great potato. This works out really well for us to ship to our customers. And just like all of you guys in this room, we all have the power of the potato in our hand, just like Liam said in the opening remarks. We all have to innovate. We all have to find new technologies and new ways to develop new research and grow potatoes in a better way in a more challenging environment and in a more difficult world with higher costs and again, more challenges. And if we do that, we have a bright future ahead. And whether the world knows it or not, they need us all to be very, very good at our jobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. And I can see that the crowd is swelling since I was here last, and that's a good sign in itself. I think one thing that I neglected to say at the onset this morning is that the 3 plenary sessions are very much overviews of specific areas, and we've just heard from Jason his experience as a person in the middle between producing, delivering, getting the customer what the customer needs and on time, and the challenges that are involved in that. I also note the volume behind me increased with the mention of the $200 French fries. And I could hear everybody thinking, if only we could get that price caused by the value of the potato that was in an ordinary fry mix. But of course, we all have the great challenge of providing food at an affordable cost to the people who need it most. And I think almost no matter what the price is, the potato will deliver that, or has the potential to deliver that. Okay, if you're looking at your programs and watching your programs, our next presentation was to be given by Martin Croft, but Martin's had to cry off because of voice issues, and that can happen in the moisture-laden climate that we can have at times. So he's ably deputized by the Deputy Director General, Hugo Campos, who is based at CIP in Lima, maybe not currently, but that's where his base is. And I must say that having visited the CIP many years ago as an Irishman, I was kind of rather proud, and maybe proud isn't the correct word, maybe I don't even know what the correct word is, but in an international center like that, to walk through the corridors and see photographs on the wall, which were memorials of the victims of the Irish famine and the consequences at the time, and to see the International Centre representing the history of Ireland in that way, it was certainly an emotional moment. So without further ado, I'm going to call on Hugo to give the presentation that Martin was going to give on food systems and the potato, which I presume is the importance of potato in food systems. Exactly. Hugo.
Thanks so much. So, do we have a mic? Okay, so, good morning. Good morning. That's better. So, I need to start apologizing. Why? Because all of you get up in the morning just to hear about Jason, Paul, and Martin. I apologize, you will have to stick with me. So I'll leave up to the challenge. So Martin has a cold, so he asked me just to give this presentation on his behalf. And I have a little favor to ask from you. I haven't had the chance to rehearse it, not even once. So if I go over to an hour, please bear with me, okay? It won't be more than 1 minute. Exactly. Working? Thanks. Okay, can you hear me? Excellent. So again, in many ways, I will be building on excellent Jason presentation because we're really working very hard, not only at CIP, but also at the 1CER, are really becoming customer-driven, okay? So really start our work not from what we think that is needed, rather from what the customers, in our case, what do we mean by customers? Very small farmers in Africa, in India, and in Latin America. Because we believe that going forward, we will become much more successful in terms of the impact on people, on improving the quality of life of people, if we focus on what the customer requires, not the other way around. Okay, so with that, this is the agenda that I will be sharing with you today. So we will be discussing about the challenges of global agri-food systems. Now, even though this presentation is about agri-food systems, again, it is not about the large and successful farmers working in the US or here in Europe. Rather, our customers are very small farmers, again, in Africa, in Asia, and in Latin America. Then, I will be sharing with you, so what's the One CGI is all about, okay? And what it is this integrated approach that we're working very hard not only at CIP, but at other centers like CIMMYT, IRRI, IITA, and a few others. And finally, well, what's the role that potato can play on it? And we strongly believe that going forward, this global reorganization, it will really create more opportunities for potato. Because we believe that, and I will make the case in this presentation, that, I mean, all of the large global agri-food systems, they can really keep going without potato in this discussion. So, Martin is very close and attached to potatoes because his father-in-law, he was a potato breeder in the Netherlands, okay? And actually, from having some conversation with this gentleman, it is where Martin's interest in biology, it was born. It's about using biology, it's about science just to address agronomic issues. So at his heart, he's really a potato guy. Now, what about food systems? Which is the global mission? Our mission, it is very simple on paper, okay? Now, it's about supporting and encouraging the transformation of food systems so that, again, small farmers, they can get affordable food, healthy diets, and within the planetary boundaries. And I'd like to go just one step forward, probably because I come from the industry. I believe that we really need to enable small farmers to generate income, because otherwise, a lot of the work that we do, it won't be able just to sustain over the years. So in addition to all of this, I mean, about giving them food security, climate resilience, and healthy diets, we really need to enable them just to create an income. Now, I really love this picture, okay? So this is about the perfect storm that we're going through in Africa and in Asia. Just think about the number of hungry people. 700 million people, mostly in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. Now, this number is kind of meaningless. So what does 700 million people look like? What's the population of Europe today, more or less? It's about 450 million people. So it's about twice the number of Europeans starving today, okay? And in the year 2050, the picture is not getting any prettier. Not only that, by the year 250, according to UN, in Europe we will have more or less 500 million people. Okay, so by then, the European population, it will represent 1 on 25 people in the world. What about Africa? By the year 2050, 1 each of 4 people in the world, they will be living in Africa, okay? And not only in rural cities, also in the cities, in the huge urban cities. So just think about this. By the year 2050, Nigeria, it will have a bigger population than the US. Let's think about that. So this is real, and it's affecting the quality of life of many people. Now, we've heard enough about climate change, drought, heat. However, quite recently, it's about COVID-19, right? So it's about the war in Ukraine. It's about food prices, inflation. My generation, I didn't know what inflation was all about until 6 months ago. Okay, so this is happening. Energy costs. So we're really going into a perfect storm. The good news, I don't have any question that we will be able to overcome this if we work together, if we pay attention to what Jason shared with us. It's about being optimists. It's about having a strategy and excel at execution and operations, okay? If we're able to do that together, we will be able to overcome this. Now, this is the more or less a current perspective about people in the world, mostly in Africa, in part of Asia, and in part of South America, getting issues about having enough food on the table. Okay, so this is not about getting a $200 a French fries, a potato, right, on the table. It's about having enough food for your children. Again, let's just think about that. There is people behind these pictures and behind these numbers. So, and the challenge is very simple, again, on paper. How can we come up, sorry about that, with a diet that on one side is good on people, right, but at the same time is good on the environment? And how can we do that within the biological and biophysical boundaries that we need to live within on planet Earth? So it is, how are we able just to transform eating habits, just to improve food production, make it more affordable, make it cheaper, and it's about reducing food waste. Now, I will skip this one. So let's start talking about potato. All of us, we came to Ireland just to hear and to learn more about potatoes. So the reality is that potato, it can really have a huge potential in African diets. Okay, so as of today, potato is already an important crop, but we believe that its scope and its importance, it can become much, much bigger, particularly in Africa and Asia, and not only from the perspective of small farmers, even from business perspective. So as I mentioned already, just in a few years, to me the year 250 is just the day after tomorrow. It will come like this, okay? So again, 1 in 4 people, they will be living in Africa, whereas only 1 in 25, it will be living in Europe. So let's think about that. And if you have been in Uganda, you will see that there, other roots, particularly potato, is really an unstable crop, okay? That a lot of people, they depend on potato for their food systems. Now, we have a lot of work to do in agriculture because we actually have a significant environmental footprint, okay, in terms of emissions and in terms of energy. However, I believe that, when we start just preparing and thinking ourselves about how to deal not only with efficiency, with health, with climate resilience, with inclusiveness and sustainability, we are going to be able, by working together, to overcome this opportunity. Now, what about potato? In Spanish, papa, P-A-P-A, right? So many of you, many of us I believe that we're aware about this, but I think that we need to be more proud and prouder to work about potato. And again, and building on Jason's presentation, unless we tell the world the story about potato, who is going to do it? No one. It is only up to us. And I think that we have so much to tell the world about a potato, and unless, again, unless we do it, nobody will. So a potato, actually, at the moment, it is the third largest crop in consumption on a world basis, okay? I think that it's about 1 billion people that they depend on potato for their food and just to provide their families with the meals. We've heard a lot about the nutrition value that potato can deliver, and it's only getting more excited about the ability of use potato as a tool to fight anemia, okay? Just to developing iron biofortified potatoes at the International Potato Center. We will start deploying them in Peru next year, and in Rwanda, and then in the rest of Africa in 2 years from now, okay? And finally, it's about enabling farmers. Again, in Africa, I have been enough time in Africa to understand that we don't need to provide them only the tools just to have a meal today. We also need to give them the tools so that they can create an income, that they can create small companies, okay? Small companies able just to integrate themselves into the value chains to provide potatoes into the large African cities in Africa. Now, this is a general picture about where potato is grown globally. In the case of the ones here and SIP, our main business is in this part of the world. So it's about Africa, it's about Central Europe, Asia, and also Latin America, which is where the potato is come from. Now, again, globally speaking, listen, we're really playing in the bigger leagues. So potato, it is one of the main crops globally speaking. I think that I don't have any problem with rice, wheat, maize getting a lot of publicity and a lot of awareness and visibility. However, I do believe that as a global potato team, we really need to work very hard to tell our story, okay? And so that potato, it gets the visibility and the awareness that it deserves. So, one of the main opportunities, it is that in many parts of the world, the potato production, it does overlap with areas of higher poverty, okay? And for instance, in the case of China, potato has played a major role at getting people out of poverty, okay? And in China and other developing countries where potato became a critical part of their food and agricultural strategy, they have been really able just to get people out of poverty, and China is a wonderful example about that. Now, Jason was talking about innovation, and I believe that this is exactly what we need as a once-a-year organization. So we need less papers and more impact, okay? And we need to understand that, again, the customer is king, okay? And unless we deliver what small farmers are expecting from us, we won't be able just to achieve our goals, okay? So because of this, we're really into a very large and complex reorganization where until now, all of the CER centers, they really run the business in a very independent way. But going forward, we're really part of a bigger organization. Now, by CER centers, I mean not only SIP, I mean IRRI, who works on rice, CIMMYT on maize and wheat, ILRI on animal production, IITA and CIAT across several crops on the tropical, and so it's a combination of centers. And going forward, again, everything starts with the customers, okay? And the way that we've organized ourselves is about having 3 global science areas. One is about plant breeding. Plant breeding is our core. It's called genetic innovation. The second one is about resilient agri-food systems, okay? And this is the one that Martin is the global director of. And also another one about system transformation, which is about the policy. In very general terms, genetic innovation is about creating superior varieties, able to really deliver the traits that the customer, that the farmer, that the traders are expecting from us. Resilient agri-food system is about developing the agronomy, okay? So the agronomy is needed just to express the genetic potential of those varieties. And in this part of the chain, system transformation is about advocacy, it's about policy change, okay? But again, all of the centers working as a whole, as just one organization. And within this perspective, the one CER, as already mentioned, is about breeding, genetic innovation, resilient agri-food systems, and system transformation. And in many ways, we're really working towards a common set of goals. So it's about nutrition, health, food security. It's about poverty reduction, okay? That's critical for us, okay? So again, we want to to deliver food security to small farmers, but what we're really are interested into is about reducing poverty. It's reducing the level of poverty. Okay, it's about gender. Gender is critically important for us because, again, that might not be the case here in Europe, neither in the US. However, in Africa, a lot of the farming is still done by women, okay? So for instance, unless our varieties, they are really customized to the traits that a women farmer requires, they won't be successful. And as already mentioned, we're not really interested in keep on publishing papers on top journals. That's part of the job. However, what we really want to achieve, and we're really very ambitious about it, is about increasing our impact. It's about improving the quality of life. And we won't be able to do that in Africa, much less in Asia, unless we get really serious about gender. Now, it's again climate adaptation and mitigation. It's about environmental stewardship and biodiversity. So this is a wicked problem. However, I'm confident that, again, working together, we will be able just to overcome it. Now, what it is that we are delivering and how it is that we are organized. As already mentioned, we have 3 global scientific areas: genetic innovation, aka breeding, resilient agri-food systems, and system transformation. But at the same time, we're really creating a kind of a matricial organization, not too different from the one that you see in a company, where at the same time, we really want to become much more focused on the customer, okay, on small farmers. And that's why we have created some regional directions. We have several over the world, one in Central and West Asia and North Africa, another one on the east side of Africa, another one in Southern Africa, South Asia, and finally Latin America. So in a way, in this matrix, we will have the pillars about science, okay? But across each of those, we have some regional directions with the feet on the ground, if you will, really understanding what it is that the customer requires so that we're able just to deliver it. Now, let's talk a little bit about the role of potato here. Okay, so on one side, it's about breeding. Okay, so it's about again really using market intelligence and really delivering seed. In the particular world of potato in Africa, some of the issue is not only about developing superior varieties. The main issue is about providing affordable seed and clean out of viruses to small farmers on a regular basis, okay? So we cannot focus only on breeding. We also need to figure out how to deliver in an affordable way those seeds into farmers. This is what Martin's global team is all about. So it's about improving potato science in areas such as agronomy, plant health, cropping systems, in situ biodiversity, and others. And as already mentioned, system transformation is about enabling potato. It's about potato becoming even bigger, okay, with a much wider footprint of contribution by improving policy, access to markets, nutrition, climate change, and others. And in the particular case of potato, of the global portfolio, we're really working very hard just to raise the profile of potato. So in many areas like those described around here. And this is what potato can deliver for small worlds. Okay, so for instance, if you have a look at this picture is from SIPWorks, where we have been really successful at developing superior genetics, particularly just to develop new varieties which are truly tolerant, if not resistant, to late blight, okay? Under very severe disease pressures in many parts of the world, okay? Again, climate resilience. This picture was taken in Peru, okay? So essentially, this is a desert, okay? It's like a sand, unfortunately, without a beach, okay? But for breeding purposes, it's a wonderful environment because this is what you get just from testing regular varieties. And this is what you get just for testing the genetics that our team have been developed over the years. And actually, here in Ireland, during the Congress, Hannele Lindqvist is with us. She has global breeding efforts for sheep, not only potato, also sweet potato. So you are more than welcome just to follow up with her and understanding more about this. Again, this is quite a remarkable story, okay? Now, again, it's about developing new potato varieties able to withstand some very severe heat and salinity conditions. In many cases, we do a lot of early testing in Peru, okay, because we have many different environments. And then the final stages of the breeding programs, they are run in Africa and in Asia. And by doing that, we're really able just to develop remarkable genetics in terms of climate resilience, nutrition, and also late blight tolerance. Now, as part of this mindset change that we're really pushing with the 1CER, it's about learning to work with companies. And it's about establishing what's called private public partnerships. And this is a wonderful example that I'm honored just to be part of, where we're working with a Dutch breeding company, HCPC, and also with the Syngenta Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture to run a commercial breeding program in Vietnam. And actually, the first varieties out of this, they will be launched into market in 2 years from now. And then we'll go for some countries in Africa and also in Asia. So this is how the future will look like for us. I mean, really working as close as possible with industry, because in many cases, industry understand the market much better than we do. So we rather focus at what we sell, rather than just trying to do everything at once, because we just don't have the expertise, not the critical mass to do that. Now, excellence in agronomy is just about the same thing, particularly with mechanization. CIMMYT has been hugely successful in many parts of the world just to develop and customize some very cheap but very clever mechanization systems, again, customized to what small farmers require. And again, this is not about the technology. It's about encouraging entrepreneurship. Because in many countries in Africa or in Asia and India, you will find some very small entrepreneurs able just to create a small company just to provide mechanization services to its neighbor farmers. Okay? Again, it's about how we find a place in potato in the huge cereal-based rotations, namely with wheat, with maize, and with rice, not only in Africa, but particularly in Asia. That's a massive opportunity just to keep on increasing the global footprint and contribution of potato, okay? Now, overall, what we really want to contribute towards is a world without hunger, okay? Again, this is not about the figures, it's not about the numbers, it's about the people behind the figures. And for that, yes, the investment in R&D is needed, however, not just on research, also on innovation. And on innovation, research is only a means to an end. In many cases, if you really want to be successful in innovation, science, technology is a means to an end. You need a business model, even if you're not seeking a profit, so that you're really able just to bundle everything together and have the contribution that you're expecting. Okay, so it's about transforming smallholder agriculture. It's about empowering women in agriculture, critically important for our success. It's about being very explicit about PPP. It's about market developments and policy for the right incentives. And I'm glad to say that I'm only 45 seconds beyond schedule. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hugo, and it's always amazing the impact that a good sub can make to any game. Okay, we're moving on. That was a fascinating insight into parts of the potato world and the challenges of feeding the people who really do not have access either to the quantity of food or the affordability of food, and we were given some of the facts behind that yesterday. And as Hugo moved through his presentation and gave a guidance as to the requirements of research and development and plant breeding, it's actually very fitting that the organisers have brought research into the next slot on this plenary session. Our next speaker was made extra famous here yesterday evening by being given a WPC Industry Awards, and for that we're thankful to the WPC for recognising people that have made huge contributions to the world of the potato and to the world of food and hunger prevention. And I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Professor Paul Struck from Wageningen University, who is going to talk to us about the future of potato research and its contribution to food security and sustainability. Paul.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to address you on a very complicated and challenging topic, the future of potato research and its contribution to food security and sustainability. Well, this slide was already shown by Hugo, so I can be very short about it. There are very many farmers growing potato in the world, and it's a very good crop to grow. There are also very many consumers who eat potato, and it's a wonderful food to eat. The only thing that I would like to comment on the slide is that the slide might underestimate the importance of maize a little bit. Well, let me start with the advantages of the potato crop. It's a very versatile in multiplication methods. It's a short cycle crop with a very high harvest index, and therefore it can be a hunger breaker. Its seed tubers are very vigorous and full of water, so they can have a very quick start. And the crop is very resource efficient. It has a very high productivity per unit of land and water. And moreover, it's very nutritious. We have already heard about that earlier this week. There are also disadvantages of the crop. First of all, it's very bulky and perishable, and therefore in many parts of the world it's actually a local for local crop. It has a very low rate of multiplication, and the seed tubers can degenerate very, very rapidly. Moreover, it's sensitive, actually very sensitive to hundreds of seed-borne, soil-borne, waterborne and airborne pests and diseases. And it's also very sensitive to abiotic stress, and therefore it also has very many different physiological disorders. And it's also a very laborious crop, as you can see here with the two farmers trying to plant potatoes. Well, and that means that the advantages and the disadvantages together should determine our future research. We should continue developing modern multiplication and breeding techniques. We should try to optimize the use of yield potential for short and long season cultivation of the crop for food security and income generation, like Hugo already said. And we should improve the seed health and the physiological age of seed tubers, or the vigor of alternative starting material, such as hybrid true potato seed, as is currently in development in many parts of the world. We should also try to optimize resource efficiency for sustainable production, and in many cases that will mean an increase in resource use. We should also strengthen efforts for integrated control of pests and diseases and create climate robust, resilient potato cultivars, especially in relation to drought and heat, as indicated by Hugo as well. And we should improve solubility, processability, and nutritional quality. Well, first of all, agronomy research must aim at closing the yield gap, which is the difference between the achievable yield and the actual farmer's yield. We should do that by enhancing resource use and resource use efficiency. We should also try to regenerate seed stock in many places of the world, for example, through positive selection, where we identify healthy plants that look good and only use those plants for seed production for the next season. and also using modern starting material, and probably also try to design proper cultural practices for their use. And in general, what we must do is try to tap into farmers' knowledge and also try to translate knowledge from science to the farmers, and that will be more or less my red thread throughout the story that I'm going to tell you today. Well, this is a picture from a wonderful paper by DeVoe et al. That gives you the average yields in potato. And it's obvious that yields in Africa are pretty low, the red colors, but also in parts of Southeast Asia, whereas they are pretty high in Europe, Australia, and Northern America. That is partly because of low efficiencies of inputs. And this is a picture from Zimbabwe, where we have different land use systems. There have been land reforms over the years several times in this country, meaning that land has been reallocated to smallholders. They received about 6 hectares. Later on, farms were installed by having farms of about 35 to 300 hectares given to them, but there are still so-called white farms, the large-scale commercial farms that are not subjected to land reform, and there are still also communal areas that are used for growing a potato. So that means that there are very different groups of farmers with very different levels of knowledge and experience, and they show very different ranges of nutrient efficiencies. For example, on the left we see the nitrogen use efficiency, and on the right you see the phosphorus use efficiency. And you can see that, for example, the green triangles, there's a very narrow range there, and with a certain nutrient use efficiency we realize a relatively low yield. So that means that at the same nutrient use efficiency, we can have very different yields for different groups of farmers, which means that there are differences in knowledge, and therefore also difference in quality of crop management, and therefore differences in yield. And this is very important, and that again means that we do need to transfer more knowledge to farmers, and we also need to tap into the knowledge of the different groups of farmers as are present here in Zimbabwe. The same story is also applicable for use efficiency of biocides in Zimbabwe, and on the left panel you see the fungicide use efficiency in kilograms of potato per gram of active ingredient, and on the right side we have the insecticide efficiency also in kilograms of potato per gram of active ingredient. And again, we see different ranges of efficiencies, but we also see different yields at the same nutrient, or in this case, biocide efficiency for the different groups of farmers. And again, we need to transfer the knowledge so that they do a better job. My next issue is seed degeneration, which I identified as a very important aspect of the agronomy of potato. And this is an example from Ecuador, where at the same, where we have 2 important panels in this figure, the one on the upper left and the one on the lower right. Potatoes were multiplied on farm during different cycles of on-farm propagation, from 1 to 2 and 3 cycles, and then they were grown. Well, they were multiplied and later also used at different altitudes in meters above sea level. And this is the percentage of seed that was infected by viruses. And we see that when we do this multiplication at a low altitude, you see an enormous increase in the percentage of seed being infected by viruses, whereas that's not the case when we plant them at higher altitudes. And that automatically translates into differences in yield. Across the different number of cycles, we see a reduction in yield when we do that multiplication at a lower altitude, and we don't see that so much when we do that multiplication at higher altitudes. Now, this is completely according to the theory, so we have less degeneration at a higher elevation. But we don't see that when we look at what farmers are doing. Farmers are recycling their seed tubers for many, many years, up to 10 years, but we also had cases where it was more than 50 years. And again, let's try to concentrate on the upper left panel and the lower right panel. This again is the percentage of seed tubers that were infected with viruses. And you see that there is no change with an increase in the number of cycles of on-farm propagation. And there's also hardly any change between the highland and the intervalley. But I should also say this level is already very, very high. So they multiply poor seed and it doesn't get much poorer. And therefore it also doesn't translate very well into yield differences. There is a little bit of fluctuation, but overall there's not much significant difference. And that means that the farmers are coping with seed degeneration, and some of them even hardly recognize that. They probably cope with it by partial replacement. But again, we need to tap into their knowledge. We need to transfer our knowledge to them so that they can better cope with the degeneration phenomenon that is still very important given the previous slide. My next slide is an example of Africa, based on a paper from Schulte Gelderman in 2015. Where the effect of positive selection was being tested, so trying to harvest seed tubers from the best-looking plants. And indeed, that positive selection had an impact on the percentage of seed tubers affected by potato leaf roll virus. And there was a very significant correlation between yield and the percentage of potato leaf roll virus infection for 3 different cultivars. And indeed, so if you do have a positive selection and thereby can realize a lower percentage of potato leaf roll virus infection, then you can create bigger yields. Then I go to new types of propagules. For example, using hybrid true potato seeds. And I would like to refer to the story of Edwin van der Vossen during this conference. And when we have season 1, we can try to start with hybrid TPS production and sow that in a nursery and try to produce seedlings so that we can use them as transplants, or actually to produce already seedling tubers from them. We can then plant either the seedlings or the seedling tubers directly in the field in the same season and produce seedling tubers or ware potatoes from that, either from the transplanted seedlings or from also the directly sowing a hybrid true potato seed. And in both cases, we have seedling tubers, and then we can replant them in the second season, producing either seed tubers or ware tubers, and those tubers can then be planted in a third season. So this is a very versatile system, but we do have to cope with the fact that hybrid true potato seed can produce relatively weak seedlings, and we need to nurture them very, very well. And the biggest positive effect of hybrid true potato seed is actually a very efficient breeding and a very fast multiplication. That brings me to physiology research that must aim at control of tuber number, defects, disorders, and size distribution. It's still very complicated in some cultivars to really control the number of tubers that's being set accurately. We also need better insights into sink-source relations and into the genotype by environment interactions and our potential to model that properly. Of course, climate robustness is very important: drought, water, surplus, heat, cold, salt, and what have you. And we also need to be able to cope with multiple stresses occurring at the same time. And finally, the stability and predictability of the quality of seed and ware is also very, very important. Now, potato has a very complicated sink-source balances, both in early and in late cultivars, and that's partly because the above-ground structures are very, very complex. And I have here put the canopy cover along the y-axis against the thermal time along the x-axis to make this a little bit simpler. And that is done for a very early cultivar Premiere and a very late cultivar Astarte. And let's try to concentrate on the black lines in both panels. And this is a line that shows the canopy cover development over time at relatively low nitrogen supply. And you can see that then the early cultivar doesn't even reach a maximum canopy cover and it's already senescing very, very early. Whereas the very late cultivar does reach almost 100% canopy cover and maintains that for quite a long time and only declines at the end of the growing season. Well, this should then create all the assimilates that are needed for tuber production. And this panel actually shows over time with the different stages of tuber formation what can happen in terms of the number of tubers or tuber incipients. And these are examples for 2 different seasons that are contrasting in the number of tubers that are being set. In case 1, we have an enormously fast increase in the number of incipients, but many of them are being resorbed. So finally, the number of saleable seed tubers, for example, is much lower than the maximum number of incipients that we had reached. In another year, we have actually not enough tubers being set, and then the difference between the total number of incipients and the saleable seed tubers is much smaller, making the difference between this line and that line much smaller than the peak here and the peak there. And we need to understand that much better. Part of the solution is physiological age, but physiological age is also a very complicated trait, which is partly determined by what is happening during the seed production, partly happening in a period between home killing and harvest, and partly by what is happening during storage, especially in relation to storage temperature, but also other environmental and physiological factors. And this is a picture that illustrates that. Here in the upper part of the picture, we see tubers in different stages of physiological age. On the left, we have a dormant tuber. This is a tuber in the apical dominant stage. Here we have multiple sprouts. Here we have multiple sprouts that already started branching, and here they are deteriorating, and here it's so senile that we have little potato formation, so we don't get a hulm anymore, we just get a tuber on a tuber. And if we plant those in different rows, then we get this kind of above ground structure. So here on the left, you see a row that doesn't have any plants, that was from a tuber of this age. So there is no emergence because the tuber is still dormant. And here we also see a row with no plants, and that was that very old material. So no home production because you get a tuber on a tuber. And in between, you see an increase in vigor and probably also an increase in number of stems, which can be more or less maximum around here. You might still see a large number of stems per plant, but not all the plants are here anymore, and you have much weaker stems which do not have a very long growth cycle. And below ground, it looks more or less like this. If you have very young material, you only get 1 stem and, well, very late tuber formation. If you have very old material, you get more stems, and you get good tubers, but they will not get that big because the crop is dead before you know, and then you probably need somewhere in between and a little bit older for seed potato production than for ware production. We try to do metabolomics on this kind of physiological age, and we have done research with 4 different contrasting cultivars. Agria being a late cultivar with a slow physiological aging, Fastine being a very late cultivar with a fast physiological aging, Innovator is early and fast aging, and Lady Claire is early and slow aging. And you can see that using gas chromatography or liquid chromatography, we can distinguish the different cultivars very, very well. So here are the 2 fast ages, and here are the 2 slow ages. And within one cultivar, we do see differences in duration of storage and storage temperature, which are actually much better visible here in this PCA. You see that the differences between the cultivars are still there, but we also see very big differences between storage temperatures and storage duration. And we try to look at that in a little bit more detail. This is just an example of two unidentified compounds. And we have the 4 cultivars here. So remember, Agria and Lady Clare are the slow ages, and the Vestine and Innovator are the fast ages. You do see differences in the different compounds, with the slow ages having much more abundance of this particular compound than the 2 fast ages. And in this compound it's even more important, because this blue box is the box for the top eye. And we see for the slow ager Agria and the slow ager Lady Clare a very high abundance of this particular compound in the top eye, and we see a very low abundance in the fast ager Vestine and the fast ager Innovator. So we try to identify more of those compounds, so we have thousands of compounds identified, and we're trying to make sense of that. And when you have a look at the interaction between storage temperature and storage duration, you get something like this. And you can imagine that we are not really clear about that. We are still trying to make sense of all the data using advanced hierarchical structuring and in consultation with bioinformatics. So more to come about that later. Right, then pathology research. Well, that must deliver control over soil and seed-borne bacteria, control over potato virus Y and leaf roll. We need to have better resistance management for early and late blight, and large-scale diagnostics based on molecular techniques, and probably also better control of new epidemics. For example, the epidemic of bacterial wilt in East Africa and of purple top in Ecuador. Here you see PVY, here you see diagnostics. This is bacterial wilt, and this is purple top. Well, we do some research in Eastern Africa with bacterial wilt, and this again is the disease picture. This is one of my former PhD candidates putting inoculum of bacterial wilt on plants with all these flasks. And this was his experiment. Don't try this at home because it's a quarantine disease, but we got special permission to do that. And for that, monitoring on the basis of molecular techniques is very important. We can do that in the field. This is one of my current PhD candidates, Abdul Wahab Abdurrahman, trying to assess bacterial wilt infections in the field. Bacterial wilt is very abundant, and is especially abundant in acid soils in Eastern Africa. And that is shown here, where we have the bacterial wilt incidence along the y-axis and the pH along the x-axis, and you can see that it goes down with an increase in pH. And that means that perhaps liming might help. And that's what we have done in some field experiments, and that is illustrated here. We have the amount of lime per hectare, and then bacterial wilt incidence along the y-axis, and you do see a decrease, and that decrease is bigger when we wait a little bit longer, so when the crop cycle is more advanced. And the blue line is for 90 days after planting, and definitely a very serious reduction in bacterial wilt. The problem is, where do you get enough lime from for all these smallholder farmers in Eastern Africa? Breeding research must deliver a better grip on relatively large genotype by environment interactions, and should also work on efficient stacking of resistance genes, and for that perhaps hybrid breeding is very promising. We need a much better control of virus diseases. That's probably against the business model of some of the breeders. They like to sell seed tubers. But we can still do a little bit of breeding against that type of virus, that type of diseases. Resistances against bacterial diseases, microbiome optimized cultivars, a new field, and definitely also biofortification, zinc, iron, vitamin C, and the antioxidants that has already been discussed earlier this week. Now, this is an example of genotype by environment interaction. So we had 189 cultivars grown at the same site, at very good sites, so you expect very little G by E, and at different levels of nitrogen, with the red ones having a higher nitrogen level than the blue ones. And the triangle are late cultivars, the squares are mid-early, and the diamonds are early. And we do see a pretty close correlation between the yields in 2010 and 29, but at the same level, you still see a huge variation in yield in the other year, and we need to get a better grip on that. And this is much, much stronger than with many other crops. This picture shows you another issue, and that is nitrogen use efficiency. Can we breed for that? Along the x-axis here, we have the dry matter yield at low nitrogen supply. And along the y-axis, we have the additional yield that we get with an amount of additional nitrogen. So how efficient does a cultivar use the extra nitrogen that we are supplying? And there's a huge scatter, but the most interesting part is actually this quadrant number 2, where we have the most efficient cultivars and the cultivars that do best at low nitrogen. And well, we have actually only late and mid-late cultivars in that segment. And that means that we haven't broken yet the relationship between high and late maturity. Microbiome optimized potato cultivation for enhanced resilience. Well, we would like to identify microbiome fingerprint signatures that are linked to enhanced stress resilience. And from there, we also like to identify the markers or the genes in potato germplasm that are linked to microbiome-assisted improvement of stress resilience. And that would finally allow us to breed for microbiome-optimized potato varieties. This is a slide from a colleague from Utrecht University. Then storage and utilization research. That must deliver a new generation of natural sprout suppressants, and I was happy to see many booths here at the conference dealing with that. Preparedness for climate change, reduced losses, and more efficient and inclusive value chains, and control of negative compounds and positive compounds, including also waste management and the use of potato protein. And the technological developments will support sustainability there. We will have artificial intelligence helping us. We will have sensor technology, remote sensing, digital twins, data science, and certainly also biotechnology. But for farmers, we also would like to give them rapid access to that technology or those technologies. For example, as is shown here for precision agriculture, with a lot of data acquisition, data processing, and finally implementation in the field with variable rate applications depending on the quality of the soil, etc. Providing inputs at the right time, at the right place, and also the right input and the right amount of input. But that again requires farmers to learn, and it requires us to tap into the knowledge base of the farmers and to make sure that we can transfer our knowledge properly to the farmers and also learn at the same time from them. Also, social sciences are very relevant. First of all, to secure potatoes' role in food security and income, sustainability, to support regulation and compliance with labels, but also to improve the image of a potato. And these are mainly pictures from developing countries, but it's certainly also true in the Western world, Europe and in Northern America. Well, I would like to conclude with a statement that it's not easy to grow potatoes. And I would also like to thank you very much for your attention. And please join us at the triennial conference in Krakow of the European Association for Potato Research. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that oversight of what is a huge range. I think one of the purposes of the Congress is to bring people together to experience what we already know. And I think it's also very useful to lay down the challenges for the future in what we do. That brings us to the end of the plenary session for today, but I have just some quick announcements. Firstly, we move now almost directly into two of the sessions. Innovation takes place here, and if there's presenters in the room that are going to be involved in that, if you can bring your slides up here now. And for the sustainability session, which is behind me, again, if there are presenters, if you can go and just get the slides lined up. After that, we move into two focus sessions, one starting at 11:45 and another at 1300 hours, or 1500 hours, 3 o'clock. And just to say, the seed hybrid and potatoes and processed potatoes take place here in the concert hall. Potato storage and fertilizer agronomy and plant health take place in room 2, which is directly behind me. Technology and breeding, NBTs, etc., takes place in room 3, which is the one in the curtains just outside of the corridor. And sustainability and rural development is in room 4. Room 4 has been moved. We said that yesterday. And for anybody going there, as you come in the main hall this morning, the registration desks are in front of you. Room 4 is now to the left of the registration desks, called the Minerva Room. It will be labelled when you get there. So that's pretty much a guide on what's happening for the remainder of the day. We're back here again at 4:30, 16:30 hours. And just one little comment before I go. When Hugo was up and he was a little bit into the presentation, having moved away from the mic and he got wired up, he asked, can you hear me? And it instantly reminded me of a little incident that had happened a number of years ago when somebody was in exactly the same situation, was giving a presentation and then asked, can you hear me out there? To which most people nodded yes, but a guy in the front row put up his hand and he said, yes, but I'm prepared to change places with anybody who can't. And therefore it's time for me to go now too. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later on this evening. Bye.